July 14th, 1982. Some stories begin in silence. A quiet lake, a full Texas moon, the kind of summer night that feels endless and harmless. Out on Lake Waco, 3 teenagers drifted toward the dark shoreline of Spiegelville Park in a borrowed fiberglass boat. 17-year-old Jill Montgomery, 14-year-old Raylene Rice, 19-year-old Kenneth Franks. They believed they were heading into a memory. They were sailing toward history. Waco, Texas in 1982 was a conservative, church-centered city where violent crime rarely defined the headlines. Families knew each other. Friday night football mattered. And summer nights belonged to teenagers looking for privacy and freedom. Jill was visiting for the summer, bright, confident, with plans that stretched beyond Central Texas. Raylene was younger, gentle, and trusting, still discovering who she was. Kenneth had recently graduated, strong and protective, the kind of young man who believed he could handle whatever came his way. That night, they packed drinks in a cooler and pushed away from shore. Witnesses saw them alive just before midnight. After that, the timeline fractures. Just after sunrise, a fisherman noticed a boat drifting alone, empty. Authorities responded quickly. When officers searched the shoreline, they found the 3 teenagers in shallow water near the rocks. They had been bound with strips of their own clothing. They had been stabbed multiple times. Their throats were cut. The medical examiner determined that all 3 ultimately drowned, held beneath less than 2 feet of water. The scene showed signs of struggle, blood on rocks, disturbed earth, evidence of desperation. The brutality stunned Waco. Fear spread quickly. Parents tightened curfews. Rumors moved faster than confirmed facts. And law enforcement faced mounting pressure to make an arrest. But in 1982, investigative tools were limited. There was no advanced DNA testing, no digital trail, no cell phone records. Investigators collected what they could: cigarette butts, beer cans, biological evidence indicating sexual assault. Blood typing was performed, but it could not identify a specific suspect, and the blood type did not match the man who would soon be charged. His name was David Wayne Spence, 28 years old, unemployed, living with his mother, known to local police for minor crimes. There was no physical evidence placing him at Lake Waco that night. No fingerprints, no eyewitness identification, no forensic match tying him to the victims. What investigators had were jailhouse informants. Inmates claimed Spence confessed while in custody. They said he described the murders in detail. Years later, several would admit they lied in exchange for reduced sentences and favorable treatment. But in 1983, their testimony carried enormous weight. Spence was arrested. His trial followed quickly. The prosecution leaned heavily on the informant's claims. They suggested Spence was capable of the violence. They framed him as dangerous. The defense pointed to the lack of physical evidence. The jury deliberated for 3 days. Guilty. David Wayne Spence was sentenced to death, but the case did not settle. Instead, it grew more complicated. A separate theory emerged involving a local convenience store owner named Munir Deeb. Prosecutors alleged Deeb had orchestrated the killings as part of an insurance scheme, claiming he wanted violence near his business to increase financial gain. 2 brothers, Gilbert Melendez and Anthony Melendez, were implicated. One of the brothers confessed, but the confession contained inconsistencies. Details didn't align cleanly with the physical evidence. Timelines shifted, statements changed. Later, the confession was recanted, with claims of coercion. Despite contradictions, convictions followed. Now, 4 men were connected to the same triple homicide, 4 different narratives. Still, no physical evidence conclusively tying any of them to the crime scene. As the years passed, cracks began to form. Appeals uncovered allegations of prosecutorial misconduct. Questions arose about evidence handling. The reliability of jailhouse informants came under increasing scrutiny nationwide. Journalists and defense attorneys revisited transcripts and forensic reports. Blood typing results collected in 1982 had excluded Spence. The biological evidence did not match him, yet the conviction stood. David Wayne Spence spent 17 years on Texas death row, 17 years in a small cell, 17 years maintaining his innocence. During the 1990s, DNA testing began reshaping the American justice system. Convictions once considered airtight were overturned. Wrongful imprisonments were exposed. Hope flickered. When testing was eventually conducted on remaining biological evidence from the Lake Waco case, the results were clear. The DNA did not match David Spence. It did not match the Melendez brothers. It did not match Munir Deeb. The profile belonged to an unidentified male, someone who had never been charged. Meanwhile, the legal outcomes shifted. Munir Deeb's conviction was overturned in the early 1990s due to prosecutorial misconduct. He was later acquitted. Anthony Melendez would eventually be paroled after decades behind bars. Gilbert Melendez died in prison. But David Wayne Spence would not see vindication. On April 3, 1997, the state of Texas carried out his execution. He was 40 years old. He died insisting he did not kill those teenagers. His execution remains one of the most debated in Texas history. Today, the Lake Waco murders are officially closed. Yet, the DNA profile recovered from the crime scene does not match any of the convicted men. The identity of the contributor remains unknown. 3 teenagers lost their futures on a quiet summer night. Multiple men lost decades of their lives. One man lost his life to execution. And the true events of what happened along that shoreline remain partially obscured by time, lost evidence, and conflicting testimony. The water at Spiegelville Park appears calm now. Families fish there. Boats glide across the surface. The Texas moon still rises over the lake, just as it did in 1982. But beneath that surface lies a case that continues to raise difficult questions about investigation, prosecution, and the cost of certainty. Some stories begin in paradise and end in doubt. The Lake Waco murders remind us that justice is not simply about verdicts, it is about truth. And in this case, the full truth may still be waiting, somewhere in the quiet darkness over Lake Waco.